Welcome back to another Scarfey Spurs Talk episode. This feels like a bit of a rarity at the moment because we will be discussing a win. We're looking back also, though, on that Chelsea defeat, that Southampton win, and looking ahead to Frankfurt because, Spurs are back and playing twice a week. It's all busy and there are a lot of good stuff, but also some bad, as there often is with us. But to get me through tonight, let's introduce the panel. Firstly, Billie T. You've had a busy few days with the Change for Tottenham protest. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very good, man. Very good to be on after a win. It feels like a while. Feels like a long time. But yeah, thank you for having me, man.
No worries, thank you. As I said, bring you on in better circumstances, you say there. Indeed. Gareth, thanks so much for coming on. I think your debut on the podcast. How you doing, mate?
All good. Harry, I know you've asked me on a few times, and for whatever reason it didn't work, but I was glad to get on this time. But just like Billy says there, and we kind of spoke there before we come on, that it was a really strange feeling yesterday winning the game. Usually Sundays are a bad way to end the week when Spurs are playing because they usually get beat. But even though they won, I'm not sure it makes us feel much better at the moment. So I'm sure we'll get into it. But it was just it's really all about Thursday. But the overall season now is really just sort of faded away. And like I said to you before the game, I wasn't really motivated for the game, and ended up watching the GAA instead. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. Not to say that I don't support the club, but it's just painful to see the players. I don't think they're giving 100% effort.
No, I totally agree with you. Thanks so much for coming on. Can't blame you at all. Travis, thanks for coming on as well. It's been a little while for yourself. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, really well, thank you, Harry. Thanks for having me back on these podcasts. Always enjoy them and nice to meet some new faces. Joey and Gareth, absolute pleasure to meet you both. I'm glad one of us is wearing the shirt tonight. So, glad to be back on and nice to see you all. Billy, I know we've been on a couple of pods together before, so yeah, good panel as always.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Joseph, thanks so much for coming on. Your debut as well on the podcast, Edition 2 out tonight. How you doing, mate?
I'm all good, thank you, gents. Pleasure to meet you, as I said before, making my debut. And yeah, hope it all goes well. Gonna enjoy some good chat with some good Spurs people.
Should be good. Thanks so much for coming on. If you need the channel, please do like and subscribe. Reminder, this is available on all major podcast platforms. So if you're listening there, please do drop us a follow and a 5-star review. And shout out to our sponsor in the Kitman. We've got a giveaway coming ahead of the Frankfurt game. So do keep your eyes peeled. It's going to be a big one. Let's very quickly review Chelsea. Billy, I'll start with you. I mean, we were really poor in this game, weren't we? You could even say, I think, that we didn't turn up for it.
Yeah, it was another really, really poor performance, kind of similar to the Fulham one, I think. And I think even when we pulled it back to 1-1 for, until the VAR, I don't think we really deserved anything from that game, to be honest. So, yeah, really, really poor one. What did you guys think? I just thought it was a real shocker, yeah. No, but same old Stamford Bridge performance, isn't it, really?
Yeah, 100%. It weren't good at all, was it? Gareth, give us your thoughts on that game. Obviously, Billy mentions there we do always seem to lose at Stamford Bridge. So, is this expected, would you say?
Yeah, I've seen Spurs teams go there in the past and be outclassed or beaten. Or the reality is that game was there for the taking. They on it. Chelsea weren't that great. A Spurs team that turned up and with a bit of heart, but a desire, but a bravery. They would have had a chance of getting something out of the game because Chelsea are struggling for confidence as well. I didn't think it was a great game. I thought it was really poor standard. Chelsea were the better team, deserved to win. But, kind of like the players lack belief. I think that, when they go out to the pitch now, they're expecting to get beat. And I think that's a major issue. I don't think this team believes in Ange anymore. I'm not sure if that's, like they've completely down tools for him. But I think there is a real lack of confidence in the group that they can get results playing this way now. And I think before kickoff, you're looking at the players' body language. You're looking at the players with their passing. It's quite stiff. It's backwards. It's sideways. Nobody wants to play forward. And then decision-making in the final third, it's really, really poor. And I think that's just how the players are feeling. Kind of how we're feeling as fans. I think the players are feeling that. But look, I've been quite critical of Ange recently. But I don't care who the manager is. The players should be given 100% regardless. That's a London derby. The fans were sensational in the way end, sang throughout the game. They're backing the players. They go there and get results, and they owe the players, or they owe the fans the money they've paid to go there and put on a performance. And that wasn't a performance of a team that wanted to get a result.
No, it certainly wasn't. Thanks so much. Totally agree with you on that one. Travis, Ange said after the game when he was asked that he thought that we nearly reached the level, we were good, we looked like a scorer and unlucky to come away basically with anything. What do you make of that? Because I don't know about you, but I felt that we never really looked like scoring. I know we got that goal disallowed through Saar, but it kind of came out of nothing, didn't it?
Yeah, listen, I find Ange Postecoglou really boring to listen to now. I don't even listen to his after-match conferences now. I can't be bothered with it. You know, how you can nearly reach the performance that's expected from a team in a North London derby is beyond me. They should be hitting the performances against these sort of teams. You know, as Gareth just said, Chelsea are struggling for confidence, and I think he's just got an answer for absolutely everything, and I think how you can have nearly have that confidence to go and beat Chelsea, obviously given our track record with Chelsea. I think it's just a very poor comment from Ange Postecoglou, really. I think he's just full of absolute tripe, if you ask me, and I'm finished with him as far as I'm concerned. As in with the Southampton game, they're two completely different games. Chelsea, you want to go and get 3 points against. You get 3 points against Southampton. You're getting 3 points against a team that's just been relegated. They're two completely different games. 3 points is 3 points, but yeah, as far as the Chelsea game went, I thought it was extremely poor. And I think the mentality, again, as Gareth just said, I think he just took most words out of my mouth, really. The mentality and the confidence in the team is just dropped so bad. And the morale within the team is horrendous.
Absolutely, thank you. Joe, can I ask you about our disallowed goal? Because I mentioned it there in my question to Travis about Sarr's disallowed goals. The Ange gave his thoughts after the game. So what did you make of that decision, VAR intervening and disallowing our goal, but also what he had to say about it after the game?
Well, first and foremost, I was actually at the game itself, and I give credit to the away fans. Every time we go to Stamford Bridge, we always put a good account of ourselves as a fan base, and we get behind the team. So when Sars actually scored the goal, we've all actually gone absolutely balmy in the away end, thinking, oh, like he's won the ball perfectly clean tackle. Obviously he's put his foot up to obviously nick it. But we didn't think nothing of it. We just thought goal. We were celebrating like mad. It's only after about 2, 3, 4 minutes when everyone's looking around and they ain't gone to the semicircles for a restart, and we're just looking around like what's going on here? And then slowly, as we know with VAR, the doubts start creeping in. There's all murmurs around, and everyone's looking at each other, thinking, "Oh no, here we go." And then, obviously, pretty much 10 minutes later, we're sitting there waiting. Everyone's standing around playing with their thumbs and twiddling their thumbs and putting their hands in their pockets, looking at their watches. And we found that obviously the goal's been disallowed for a foul. I mean, when they showed the VAR camera and the footage of people going back in the ground, the screens are so tiny at Stamford Bridge, though it didn't look like a foul. Obviously, on TV you see it's a foul, but I mean, with Ange, it's like when he first come in, he's all high and mighty about, oh yeah, we don't put pressure on referees. My teams don't do that. I don't do that. And obviously now, as the tide's turned and he's under pressure now, you're starting to see like his natural demeanor and the way he genuinely feels start coming up. Whether it's obviously nastiness because of the situation that he's currently in or what. Can kind of see he kind of flip the script now and he's saying the complete opposite. So I mean, it's natural for him to obviously try and defend the situation, but at the end of the day, it's a foul, isn't it? Really, it's a foul. So what can we do? I think we didn't apply ourselves to a massive degree in the second half anyway. I think we done well to hold them off in the first half, and we're quite even. They didn't really get a look in, but I think overall in the second half we didn't deserve to win the game anyway. He was under the cosh for most of it. So yeah.
But do you not think that VAR makes a foul look more malicious than what it actually is when they slow it down? And that's exactly what that referee's looking at. It makes it look 10 times worse than what that foul actually is, because I didn't see anything wrong with that foul. And that's not from a biased opinion. That's from what you see firsthand, so then going to watch a slow down video on a TV screen. No,
I totally agree with you, Travis. I totally agree.
Yeah, thank you, both of you. Billy, do you agree with Joseph there that he's a foul at the end of the day, frustrating, but when you watch it back, there's contact?
Yeah, definitely. I think if that was the other way around, we'd have probably been one annoyed. So, yeah, it was a foul, unfortunately, because that was probably our only good moment of the match that we didn't turn up, man. That's just a shame. And then, I feel sorry for all the travelling fans that go there, because while it's not a big game in the context of our season for fans, it's a huge one because it's a derby, and those derbies are always painful to lose, especially against one of our huge rivals in Chelsea. It's just, and you watch at the weekend, Brentford drew it away at Chelsea, and Chelsea didn't look that good, and I don't think they're particularly that good against us either. I just think that's the sort of level that we're at right now. I don't think their team was particularly strong at all. I wasn't really impressed with them, but we didn't have any match for them. I think that's the sad aspect, that we should have been able to get a result from that game.
Yeah, we made it far too easy for them, as you say. Sticking with you though, Billy, can I ask you about Ange's gestures towards the fans? People didn't see it, cupping his hands with his ear, taunting, waving at the fans after, that we scored that goal, scored by Sarr, because for context, it was a substitution to take Bergvall off and put Sarr on. The Spurs fans booed, and they said, chanted at him, "You don't know what you're doing," because he took Bergvall off. Which is cool. Credits Bergvall, by the way, in the season he's had. But how do you view that, Billy? I mean, it's not what you want to see, is it, when your team at the time sits 14th, 15th place?
No, it's really disappointing, I think, from Ange, to be honest. And I think, I've been a big supporter of Ange, but the fact of the matter is, the last 2 games, he's sort of picking fights with fans all over the shop. We had after Fulham, he had to go at that Spurs fan or Fulham fan, whoever it was. There's been a couple of number of issues like that, but this was like a real turning point for me. I think when you're purposely and deliberately aiming a gesture towards the fans, I think there's no coming back from that, really. And I think the thing is with Tottenham, I think the fans have been really pretty patient with Ange this season, because they've had to stomach 20 or so losses across all competitions. And I think to call them out, there's no coming back from it. I think he would have lost a lot of fans, or a lot of steady kind of remaining fans at that. And I think the thing is, when you lose the away fans, that's when you're done. I think, the away fans are your core supporters that travel week in, week out. And the away fans have been excellent towards him. There's only been a few games, a couple of games really, where it's turned toxic, but he's never really been booed or anything like that, or never had any chance. It's the first time we've seen it. So to rise to that straight away, I think shows that I can't see him repairing that relationship now, to be honest.
No, nor can I. I think you're absolutely spot on. The few that were still behind him, he's slowly but surely losing that kind of bond, that trust, which is it's a shame. No one wants to see that at Spurs. Gareth, can I get your thoughts on Ange's behaviour, if you like, and then his comments post-match? Basically said he didn't do it and trying to divert.
Yeah, Harry, I mean, I coach football on the underage level, underrates, and sometimes you would have an issue with a parent, or a parent might offer an opinion. And if, say, a player come on and scored a goal, I would never cut my ear to the parents. I thought it was very amateurish what he did. Very kind of Sunday league. I've never seen a manager do that to a fan base where he, I know better, and had to make a point of doing it. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous, to be honest, and it probably shows you where he's at. I do think the Premier League's too big for him. Look, I was a big supporter like Billy, loved the style of play, but slowly but surely I think he's been found out at a level, and he's a proud man. He's obviously reading a lot of stuff about him. People are saying a lot of stuff about him, and because he's not experienced enough in this position, he's reacting to it constantly. And I think he made a comment the other day that he'll react again if he has to. If somebody's trying to, if a mobile phone in front of him, he would always react, which I think you just have to walk on and just ignore it. And the best managers are very cool, calm, and collected, bar a couple. For example, Arne Slot there, they've been, brilliant all season, but they had a little wobble there recently, Liverpool. And Slot kind of remained cool, calm, and collected, other than that Everton game where he had to go with the referee. But you can just never manage. You can never imagine another manager doing what Ange did on Thursday night to his own fans. So I just think he's reluctant to change, and it's going to be his downfall, because good managers adapt in situations. They find ways to win games or change things. If you're a player in that dressing room, if it doesn't matter what level you're at, if you're losing games week after week after week, and your only solution is to keep trying to do what you've been doing for the whole season, these are professional footballers. They've international footballers. They've spoken to our managers, played under our managers, and they know what's right and what's wrong. So you can't pull the wool over the fans' eye, but you definitely can't pull the wool over the professional players' eye. And I just think they've completely lost any faith in them. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think the boys mentioned there his post-match press conferences. He may as well just press play from last week or a week before. He'll have a go at the reporter He'll not like what the reporter asks him, and he'll try and manipulate it that the reporter's trying to get him to say something that he doesn't want to do. It's like an us against the world mentality. When really, if he was honest, he wouldn't get the criticism that he gets, because he's saying the Chelsea performance was somewhere near our we're getting back to somewhere near our best level, and we couldn't be further off our best level at the moment. So his comments to me mean absolutely nothing at the moment. Yeah. Whether he believes it or not, and he's just saying it in front of the media is another thing. Only Ange knows. But I'll worry if you think. I'll be honest with you. I think he's a smart enough man. I think he knows his time's up, and it's just trying to get to the end of the season, really.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you very much, Gareth. Joe, he does say some sensible things, though, doesn't he, Ange, post-match? Despite that defeat, does some really silly things like the taunting, the cupping, etc. But, I think his piece about, for example, mobile phones, in terms of clipping little bits and, people giving that reaction, that 30-second fame, as he called it, I think he's right with that. And with VAR, he does make some good points, but I think it's just a shame that he just does it when things don't go his way, rather than, he doesn't want to talk about VAR, as you said earlier yourself. Refereeing and officiating, it's all good in this country when it goes our way, but when it doesn't, he's constantly on the VAR kind of, saga. He wants to talk about it then.
It's the same thing, really. Like if you watch the game yesterday, when Bergwijn's goal went in, what is he doing on the sideline? He's pretending to flip a coin and say, "Oh, is it going to be a VAR decision go against, or is it going to go for us?" It's just like, I don't know. It's like he's playing up to this villain role for the cameras now. Like, I don't understand like why it comes across like he wants the media attention. He wants the tabloids to be kind of on his side, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know what to make of it personally. I think he'd be an amazing car salesman. I genuinely do. I think he'd be an amazing car salesman, because he's got the gift of the gab, and he always seems to, well, not me personally, but he always seems to rail in a lot of the fans when they think they're losing him, or he thinks he's losing them, and then comes up with another press conference and he's talking about, I'm going to keep fighting, like, till it's over, till they say it's over, and stuff like that. And it's just like, mate, like, it's all well and good you saying this in your press conference, but show us stuff on the football pitch. Show us you can change. Show us you can adapt to the opposition. You know what I'm saying? Whoever we're playing on that week. Do you know what I mean? Don't just. I understand this era of football and these modern managers that they think, it's my way or the highway, and I'm playing my system. But in the Premier League, you can't do that. Teams set up against you differently. Everyone's tactically inept in their own way. You know what I mean? Every manager's got what's what I'm looking for? Got experience. They know. They analyze you. They watch your games back from the last 2-3 weeks, and they will set up how to play against you. And I think Ange doesn't quite grasp that, and I think that's because of his inexperience of managing at the top level. That's my personal opinion. So it's all well and good saying all the great things in the conferences, but we need to see things in the football pitch.
Sorry, Harry, but Joe makes a great point there. See if you're a video analyst at an club, it must be like a holiday week when you play Spurs on the rounds, because you just know what's going to happen. You just say press play from last week. The fullbacks are going to go unbearded, and the wingers are going to go high and wide. If you look at it, Romero ends up passing to Brennan Johnson instead of maybe passing inside the midfield or the fullback, because Brennan Johnson's to come all the way back, or on the left side it's Son. So, if you're a video analyst and you Spurs coming up, you could nearly have a week off in Spain and just say, do you know what? All that stuff in Spurs, just play from last week, and because nothing changes. And against good teams, Joe's right, you get found out.
Yeah, I think you're both spot on. Thank you, both of you. I tell you what, I'm going to bring up a comment here from David Clark in the YouTube chat. He says, look, I'm 70 years old and old school, and for Spurs fans going over the top about a coach cupping his hands to his ear, I'm Anjal. Please, seriously, we all know he's under pressure, self-inflicted or not. So David doesn't have a problem with it. It's just interesting. So there is that other side to it, but generally I think among the fan base that would have upset quite a few people what Ange done. And I just think where we are in the league, I just find it rather embarrassing. If we're competing for top 4, there's a lot at stake. He's done a excellent job this season, punching above our weight. Then he has more of a right, I guess. But I agree. It's like Sunday League, as Gareth says. Just to do that and be where we are and struggled as much as we have. I just find it absolutely crazy. But let's move on now to Southampton, and we'll kick it off with you, Billy, for the Change for Tottenham protest beforehand, the march. I mean, the turnout looked absolutely fantastic, didn't it? How did it go, in your point of view?
Yeah, we are absolutely delighted, and just thank you very much to anyone who supported it, both either helping to promote it or turned up on the day or was joining in worldwide. It was a really amazing turnout. Certainly more than we could have dreamed for, really, to be honest. And I think, it just shows that a lot of fans got the appetite for change at the moment. I think we're in a pretty much midst of a disastrous season. I think, one of many under this ownership, and I don't think things are going to get better. I don't think they have shown enough to know they know how to run a football club capably at this point. So yeah, lots of people joining us. So thank you to each and every one of them. It really does mean a lot.
Yeah, 100%. I thought it went really well. Gareth, what did you make of the protest, how it looked? Obviously, I know that you didn't go to the game, but again, some kind of question to you. It looks a really good turnout. Is that something that people should really be supporting, like not only now, but in the future? Because, Change for Tottenham, I think, have done incredibly well, to set it up and different protests are done now. It just seems to be growing and growing. You're on mute, Gareth. Gareth, you're on mute.
Sorry, boy. Sorry. I was just saying, I was at the Liverpool away game, and I was on the away end with a lot of season ticket holders. And I was right next to Chris Carlin. And like we were talking, and there's a real there's no belief in the fans that we were going to go and win that game, or turn that tie around. Even when we 1-0 down, and I think the fans have felt really disengaged with the team, disengaged with the ownership. We've seen protests in the past, but I think this time it's taken on another level. I was really happy to hear yesterday when we went 2-0 up, they celebrated the goal, and then automatically we won't leave you out, because I think for it's easy to get distracted when a team's doing well, and then you forget about the protest. But I think this time even they all won, and the fans are being pretty consistent with. Even if we were to go on and win the Europa League, I don't think it would stop the protests. I think Spurs fans have had enough. They realise now that results can paper over cracks. And let's be honest, Pochettino really, he was Daniel Levy's saviour. He kept the fans off his back for a long, long time. And since he's left, it's just got progressively worse. The wrong managers have been picked at times, the wrong recruitment constantly. The wage structure is completely wrong for a team that wants to be fighting for Champions League or playing in the Champions League every season. You're never going to attract top players on 50 grand a week. The players that have come in, like Solanke and Johnson, I can't believe the wages that they're on. I thought they'd be on a lot more for the fees they were signed for, but they're on a lot less than what our clubs would put players on. And I think that's why when you see, us Langley players, they turn us down. I understand there's some players that are maybe have offers from bigger clubs, but Spurs still have a big pulling power. They're in London. It's a brand new stadium. The training ground's fantastic. It's still a big club. You're playing in front of a passionate fan base every week. As Billy pointed out and Joey pointed out, the away end's full every week, very passionate. And when players do join, they do say that, it's a pleasure to play for them, and most of them feel a connection to the club after they leave. So I don't buy this that we couldn't compete. We can't compete for top players. We might not be able to get every single player, but we can definitely be at the table. And I think that the one in the summer we were linked with all summer was Dewey. We wouldn't pay the money for him, and then we go and sign Odegaard instead. And look, Odegaard's a tidy enough looking player, but you watch Dewey against Liverpool, and he can't even get on the PSG team. He makes such a difference when he comes off because he's direct, he's more confident, just an all-around better player. And we've been in that situation many times where a player is sort of their first preference, but they go for their second or third or fourth choice, and it rarely works out. How many of the players over the last 10 years that's come through the door have been hits? You could probably name them on one hand. And that is the policy of this club at the moment, that we sign second-rate or third-rate players. When have we ever seen players we've signed recently where Liverpool run for them or Man City run for them? We're usually competing with the likes of Brentford or Bournemouth for players. And whilst they've got a really good structure, we're at a different level where playing for Bournemouth, there's less pressure on you. Spurs are still a big club that are expected to compete for honours and Champions League football every season. So I think the fans have just had enough of being brainwashed and whitewashed by Daniel Levy and Enix's policy of, it's all about being sustainable. But it's great that we're sustainable, but what's it doing for us as a club? We're not going anywhere. If we're going backwards, and I'm watching this Leicester and Newcastle game here, and Leicester are absolutely shocking. Ipswich are shocking, and Southampton are one of the worst we've ever seen. only for these teams, we would be in a real dogfight. And who's to say if we don't improve? You're never too big to go down. We've seen Newcastle go down, Aston Villa go down in recent seasons. So you're never, ever too big. And we're sleepwalking towards being a mid-table club that could eventually be pulled under a fight like that. And the fans have had enough. And Billie and the campaign and everyone that's connected to it deserve massive applause, because we deserve so much better as a fan base because of the prices we pay, the commitment we have. Of course, every club's committed, but fans are committed. But we pay a lot of money to go and watch our team, and we're not getting the standard that we deserve.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Travis. I know your thoughts are on Levy and Enoch. How do you feel that the protest went from kind of viewing on social media for yourself, and because you've voiced your support for change for Tottenham, but I think they delivered really well here, didn't they?
Yeah, I think the change for Tottenham, the protest was absolutely fantastic, and huge credit to everyone that went, including you, Billie T. I think it's something that's we've been longing for such a long time now. You've got Tottenham fans from the 60s to the 70s to the era that we're in now. People that were going to Tottenham since they were young. My dad used to go to Spurs. In the 60s, so he's been there, done it, and I think the structure of the club now is run completely differently to what it was back then. So I think these protests, I think, are absolutely imperative to have, and I hope that the amount of people that go keeps climbing until we do get that change. So yeah, I mean, if I could attend the protest, I absolutely would, because obviously how I feel about it as well. I think petitions need to be signed, and I think these protests, I think the numbers that are going, it shows, it shows what people want from the club and what people need from the club, and it's been needed for a long time now. And I'm glad people are voicing how they're feeling, because it's not changed for a long time. We're back to square one again. We've lost our last 16, 17 league games now. The transfer windows have been absolutely dire. Massive respect to every single person that's attending them. What's the word now?
Marches and protests.
The marches and the protests, massive, and the banners are fantastic as well. So keep up the good work to everyone that's listening that has attended their marches and protests. Massive respect.
Did anyone listen to Simon Jordan and Stefan Borden last week? They were talking about Daniel Levy, and I thought it was quite interesting because Simon Jordan's very he's defensive of him, but he made a comment that he's running out of road, and usually he has eyes and ears in the media.
I don't know.
I'm wondering is he thinking about his position a lot more? Is he feeling like he can't continue any longer? It's interesting that he said that, because that's the first time I've ever heard him say, about Daniel maybe thinking that his time was up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next sort of year and a half.
It's mind-boggling. It really is, Gareth, because I understand to an extent why people defend Daniel Levy, because of the stadium that is created, the F1 track that is put under the pitch, the rotating NFL pitch, whatever, is absolutely fantastic. The Skywalk's really good. I've done it a couple of years ago. The stadium is world class. It's probably the best in the world. But what he's putting on the football pitch, when people are spending thousands and thousands, that's with season tickets, that's buying tickets every week, that's everything else, the merchandise that goes into the club, every single penny that's going into that club is going from supporters that just want a decent game of football that we've not had for a long time, and I really feel for people. I mean, I don't go as much as what I'd like to, obviously, given the prices and stuff, but there's people that go week in, week out, pay thousands and thousands for boxes, for season tickets, and I kind of think it gets forgotten about, and they're not cheap, but Daniel Levy's a businessman, so whoever defends him in a football aspect needs a bit of a head wobble.
What
really.
We've become essentially as a tourist attraction. We're getting loads and loads of tourists visiting that ground. It's a great day out. I have people messaging me. Can you get me tickets to the Spurs match? I wouldn't mind going, because I hear it's a great stadium and the food's great, and you can have the farm. You can go and do the F1 the skywalk, as you mentioned. So from a business point of view, they've created this, money making machine. But unfortunately, that's not transferred to the pitch. And it was quite worrying listening to the two fellas on TalkSport last week, Simon Jordan and Stefan Borson, who know their numbers inside out. He says unless Spurs won the Europa League and qualify for the Champions League, it's going to be a very difficult summer for them unless they sell a lot of players, because the money isn't there in the books. They would be it would be their second season out of 3 in your European football. So you're down
players leaving, let alone selling players. I can see players leaving. I can see Romero leaving. I can see Van de Ven playing. Kulusevski. Other names are going. Real Madrid, PSG. They're going to come absolutely bombarding for them sort of players. And Daniel Levy, being the chairman he is, will slap $100 million price tag on it, and they'll go exactly what they've done with Harry Kane.
I think he knows that. So that's the thing now. How can he stay in his role? I think maybe he's even thinking, surely now this is even too big for me to sort out. They've lost the fans. It's going to be a difficult summer. I don't see us winning the Europa League, so it's going to be a very difficult summer. They do stuff. Is it going to get much better in the next year? Probably not. We'll have to hire a new manager. So I think he's probably thinking maybe this is the time to step away. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the club reconsidered his position, or they do everything they can to sell him, but that's unlikely because it's such a valuable product, Spurs, at the moment. Why would they sell when it's making so much money? So it's a really, really difficult one. But I think they're going to have to make a decision regarding Levy and the football operations side of the club.
It just makes me laugh, Lou, because he owns about 2% of the club. Joe Lewis owns the club. Enoch owns the club. Daniel Levy owns 2%. And he's too big for his boots, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think he's ever going to go, though, but I do agree with what you're all saying. I don't think he should go through another manager if Ange does depart, which looks ever likely at the end of the season. Joe, I want to bring you in, though, on this discussion. How do you feel, because this is your first time on here, how do you feel about Daniel Levy and Enoch, and also the protest that we saw at the weekend? Is that something that you would support?
Yeah, I've been Levy out, Enoch out for a very long time. Again, I think his position is untenable. I think it's been that way for a couple of years now. I think when the whole Harry Kane debacle first happened, I think he lost Harry Kane from then. I think Harry Kane's mind was made up from before he actually left. Mm-hmm. And for me, it became a situation where when you have a player like Harry Kane doing what he did, he carried us for a number of years. I think for you to sit there and not think, do you know what? I need to build a team behind this man because he's what's keeping me afloat. He's effectively keeping my business running and he's keeping my fan base happy. So for you to not think, we're gonna have to go to Joe Lewis and say we're gonna have to put our finger out a little bit here and break the bank to a degree to kind of keep us afloat and keep the fans on our side. And when we lost Harry Kane, I think for me personally, I think that was the end. I knew that was the end. I knew it was the end. I think. From then on, what have we done? We bought a bunch of lower level Premier League Championship players and thought, we're going to be able to survive. I think the proof's in the pudding. I think Ange plays a huge role. Don't get me wrong, he plays a huge role, and I will get to him eventually, I'm sure. But I feel like this has been coming for about 2 years, 3 years, I think. Realistically, I think Harry Kane's literally just kept us our heads above water, and this has been on the cards for a while. And for me, personally, as everyone said, I think on the business side of things, I think Levy's superb. I think you can't knock him on that side of things. But when it comes to actually making a successful football club, which is what it is first and foremost, a football club, he's inept. He's not capable of doing it. And I think it really and truly, it's going to be a nightmare to get rid of him. It's probably very, very unlikely. However, what he needs to do is he needs to step aside. Hand the footballing operation to somebody who's capable of doing so, and Mr. Levy, you work on the business side of things and stay out of the football side. That way, I think the fan base will be off his back up to a degree, and I think everyone can say when it comes to dealing with selling players and whatnot, I think that's probably where his strengths are, because you always get a good fee for players when we do end up selling them, which is we wouldn't want to sell our best players, of course, but when we do, you get a good chunk for it. But besides that, I think Mr. Levy needs to step away from the football side of things and put someone that's more of quality in that position, and then hopefully, invest some real money into the football team and put the football team first. And that's the only way I can see him staying. But other than that, he needs to step aside overall.
Yeah, I personally agree with you. I think you're right. But how many times have we said that? How long have we been saying this? If Levy steps away, when Levy steps away, and we see all these different appointments, Mon, Johan Langer, and I just don't think it makes any difference. I think we know who makes that final decision, who's involved in everything. I totally agree. But from a business point of view, excellent. And I want that financial stability at the club. But at the end of the day, we're just not ambitious. And Gareth, I think you mentioned it earlier. Just the way that we recruit, and in particular the way we go about things with like the wages, you can't compete with world-class clubs ever if you don't buy world-class and you're just paying people 50 grand a week. It just doesn't work. It's a recipe for failure.
The only issue is if you replace Levy, and bring another chairman in, if he's going to be working under the same wage structure, what chance have we got? Levy as the chairman, but he can only work within what he's given. And if Enoch and Joe Lewis aren't prepared to bump up the wage structure, then it's really going to be still difficult to attract top players. And I think Joey was spot on with Harry Kane. I remember when Kane was sold, the statement that Daniel put out, that we matched Harry's, whatever club was going to offer Harry money, we were going to match it. But it was never about the wages for Harry. Harry wanted ambition on the pitch. He would have had less wages if he says, "Look, Harry, we're going to build."
And we didn't deliver that. We failed,
and we didn't deliver. We brought players in that weren't good enough, and I think that was it for Harry. If Harry had been told, "We're going to give you 3 or 4 top class, world class players on this team," then he probably would have stayed, because he loves and breathes Spurs. It wouldn't shock me to see Harry came back in a couple of years' time. Trying to maybe chase down Shearer's record. He probably won't be at the level he was when he left, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did come back and try to win Spurs a trophy. But that's where, again, Daniel was all wrong in the, we matched these wages, or we were, well, it's not about that. It's about buying players that was going to give Harry Kane his needs. And his needs was, he was 30, 31. He won trophies now, and we just weren't prepared to do that as a club. So as much as we can criticise Levy, and we all have, unless Enoch are prepared to change this wage structure, we need to pray for someone to come in and buy them out and pay them what they want. Now, they want a massive, roughly what we're hearing, 3.5 to 4 billion is what they want. Who's going to come in and do that? And we're going to have to say plenty of prayers, maybe even do the rosary. But at the moment, that doesn't seem likely, because the club are probably valuing the club too high.
Yeah. Totally agree. I think you're spot on. It's not Daniel Levy. He's frustrating, and he's got the managerial appointments wrong and the decisions around that totally wrong. But it's just, for me, we have an unambitious model and owners that put the business first. But in their point of view, Daniel Levy will be doing an excellent job because of the money that the stadium brings in, and that's why we're seeing his bonus go up every year, and etc. So for them, they're like, Daniel, keep going. But for us, it's completely different, and it isn't just Spurs. It's just generally, it's the way we're moving. It's all about the business and just losing that football club asset, which is a real shame, because you use the whole point of football and those core kind of fans, which is a real shame. The direction that football's heading in. Fulham's another club that is very similar. But onto the game itself, let's get into it. Our starting 11 was Vicario, Porro, Romero, Davis, Spence, Bentancur, Bergwijn, Maddison, and Johnson, Solanke, and Son. Billy, what were your thoughts at the time? Because it was a really strong lineup, wasn't it? Did you expect it to be that strong with Frankfurt in mind on Thursday?
No, I didn't expect it to be that strong, especially when there was a report that came out on Friday, I think it was Dan Kilpatrick in the Standard said he's probably going to rest Son, Maddison, and someone else as well. So the fact that Maddison and Son started was a bit of a surprise for me. I think he said that he wants to get them. He started them, everyone, to get playing some rhythm before Frankfurt, which I do understand, to be honest, because we've been out of sorts for a while, and it's since we started playing like proper good football consistently over 90 minutes, it's been a very long time. So I understand that line of thinking. I just think we've had a massive break in between Chelsea and the last game, the Fulham game. So I understand not resting players, and I do think we do need to play into form, but I don't think this was they particularly achieved that necessarily. But still, I can understand why he'd go that strong, because I think he wants to get them playing into some rhythm before Frankfurt.
Absolutely good insight there. Thank you very much, Joe. The lineup as well, I'm going to ask you about. What were your thoughts at the time? Anything you'd done differently, or maybe took you by surprise?
I'm going to agree with Billy. I expected him to rest a couple with Frankfurt in mind. Although I did think prior to kickoff, believe it or not, that that game suited Brennan Johnson to a T. I think Jed at left back. I think I watched him at Forest, and I even watched him when he first came and played against us against Middlesbrough in the cup about 5 years ago. He was about 5 years ago. He was superb. But Jed at left back, I'm not going to lie to you boys. I think he's been amazing. I think it's been a bit. He's been a bit. I wouldn't say he's been a bit shaky at right back at all, but I feel like he looked a lot more impressive left back, weirdly, than he has at right back when he has played. But I think I'm not really too surprised with that. I agree with Billy, but I expected us to just see the game out by half time, and then he'll make all substitutions needed to make, and then everyone can rest. Really, I think it was good that I didn't see Mickey play. I think Mickey definitely needs a rest, and he could be ready for Thursday. But overall, I think he made that game harder than it needed to be, or a bit more unnerving than it needed to be. Anyway, I'll put it that way. But yeah, overall, I thought didn't really see no issues with it, really.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the action, 13th minute, first goal of the game, should I say, came for Spurs. Brennan Johnson, it was. Gareth, I mean, let's talk about this goal. I mean, firstly, it's a lovely cutback from Spence. We talk about him there. I mean, that's really good awareness, isn't it, to cut it back? And I think that's a really key part of this goal that just cut the surprise. Really takes Southampton by surprise. They're not expecting the cutback, expecting a ball into the box, and Spence, I think, is thinking one step ahead of the game.
Yeah, I think Joy's probably flagged up the plus they have on maybe a fullback play on the opposite side where he come on side on the stronger side, doesn't he? And then he cut it back with his left foot, but he can go both ways, getting his Spence. Whereas thinking that right back system, because he's right footed, he's always going to go on the outside, isn't he? So it gives him that option. I do think his best performances have come at left back, strangely enough, with him being right footed, but it's an option at the moment because Udogi's not pulling up any trees, is he? He's been poor this season. And look, Porro has his liabilities defensively, but his output's a lot better than Udogi's. So if you have to get Spence into the team that way, then maybe that's the way to go for Frankfurt. But great goal, and Brennan gets a lot of criticism. Look, I don't think he's a fantastic footballer, but he does score goals. He rarely does he have a game where he kind of get excited or he does something electric. He's just pretty good inside the box, isn't he? He doesn't really do much outside it. I think he's better when the ball's in front of him than he has when he has it at his feet. I think he tends to not dribble past players enough. He kind of just goes for the first time cross. So I think when the ball's in front of him, he's quite good in the box. And 2 first-time finishes, wasn't it? So right and left foot, and he got a couple of goals against Ipswich when he came back into the team as well. So he's a goal threat. I think that's 16 for the season. And I don't necessarily think he's been great, but at the moment, he's an important player for us because he is a goal threat. Solanke hasn't been the same player since he came back from his injury. Odegaard scored 2 goals against AZ, but other than that, we haven't seen. He doesn't look like he's going to score too many goals. Son's been off form, so I think at the moment we Kulusevski out. Brennan has to play really because he's one of your most likely threats to goal. But look, I mean, I sort of get what the boys were saying there, but I wasn't surprised by the team, Harry, because I think Ange knew deep down if we lost this game or even drew it, he wasn't going to be in charge on Thursday night. I don't think anyone at the club could have sat back and says, well, let's give him Frankfurt. If we just lost to Southampton or failed to beat Southampton at home, I think they would have pulled the plug and says, let's roll with Ryan Mason and see if he can get something else out of them for the last wee part of the season. Because I do think deep down the decision's probably already been made that they're going to go a different way in the summer. So I think if they had a lost to Southampton yesterday, they probably would have pulled the plug. Other than Van de Ven, he went with pretty much what he thought was his strongest team. And I think the only reason Van de Ven didn't play is he was probably thinking we would win the game. And the only real chance we have against Frankfurt is if Van de Ven's fit. Or winning this competition, we've been better with Van de Ven at the back, notoriously. So I think that was the only thinking behind not playing him. But everyone else, was kind of what we thought his strongest team would be. He didn't. We haven't seen Basuma play much, so he didn't. That was a game to bring him on if he was going to bring him on. So very interesting because he's kind of nailed his eggs now on these players to starting. That team selection is not going to be too different on Thursday. So I wonder what the feeling in the camp is. These certain players now that maybe haven't turned fully against them, are they going to be against them now? I don't see Basuma getting back into the team, for example. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens over the next sort of couple of weeks. But I think Ange just knew deep down this was a game he had to win if he wanted to see Frankfurt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He wouldn't have been good with it if we, lost this game. There would have been a lot of pressure and a lot of questions about his future going into Frankfurt, which is not what we want. We don't want any distractions. Travis, a good start to the game, wasn't it? I think you started well the first 5-10 minutes, but Southampton break away. They nearly score. I think it might be safe for Vicario onto the post. So they did come really close there, but we punished them down the other end. But it kind of, sums up Southampton's season, doesn't it, really, in terms of maybe their luck, I suppose. They come really close to scoring and then they're punished down the other end.
Yeah, I think their goal kind of goes for our ball watching, really. We're very good at ball watching. I think that's where we got caught out there.
I mean about our first goal, but Southampton nearly scored before that. So I'm saying, it kind of sums up their season, doesn't it? They don't take their chance and they're punished for it through poor defending.
Yeah, I mean, it does. As you say, it sums up their season. I think they'll be back in the Premier League next year. I don't think they're a bad side, Southampton. I know they've obviously been relegated, but I don't think they're really that bad to what people make them out to be. They've got some decent players there, but yeah, it's just been unfortunate for them. So I think they'll do well in the Championship, and I think they'll be back up again next year. I know they've been relegated, but I don't think they're really that bad. I don't think they're an awful team. I think there's worse teams in there, i.e. Leicester. I know the Southampton manager parted ways with Southampton today, but yeah, there's worse teams in there. But yeah, I hope they do well in the Championship.
All right, fair enough. I think the gap between the Premier League and Championship is bigger than ever. So we'll have to see what's happened. Be all right. They have parted ways with their manager. No surprise, really. He was brought in just to keep them up. And I think he's one of those managers that will be really quickly forgotten that he was a Premier League manager at all. I was going to talk about Brendan Johnson later, but we might as well do it now. Billy, I'll come to you. Do you think he is overhated? Because I've got a little stat here on Johnson because he's. I think that he's overhated because he's just reading here. 35 goal contributors. Hasn't obviously been here 2 seasons. Joint most assists in the 23-24 season with 10. Our top scorer this season, the 24-25 campaign, with 16. He's bagged a brace now in our previous 2 Premier League wins. I mean, he's a clinical player. But can you understand fans' maybe frustration with him despite his really good numbers?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think he's obviously. I think a lot of it with Johnson is tactical as well. Like he's obviously being asked to do things and doing them. Like he's definitely a system player for us. I think like he's the back post runs that he does. That's like all he's pretty much being told to do. I think the frustration for fans is on the eye test. He's not like the most exciting winger, and maybe there's a bit of a work rate problem there. He's not like one of the wingers that's always going to ask for the ball, take him out, and hit a shot from the edge of the box, curl it into the area. He's a completely different kind of winger to that. But I don't particularly blame him for that. And I wonder if under a new manager, you might see him do different things. So I think he's tactically being asked to do what he's supposed to be doing, and he's doing it very, very well. And obviously the goal returns is excellent. So yeah, I'm a bit on the fence with Johnson. I think he's an excellent goal scorer. I just feel like sometimes you just want something a bit more from your winger, but you definitely can't argue with the numbers. No,
you can't. No, 100%. Thank you very much. We'll move on, though, for now to 38th minute and our disallowed goal, another VAR controversy because it took 4 minutes and 50 seconds. This VAR check to, in the end, deem that it was offside and go against the on-field decision where the flag was not raised. Joe, VAR, let's talk about it. How do you view it at the moment? Is it ruining the game?
It's definitely ruining the game. It takes, as a match-going fan as well, that was there. Like, it takes away the joy of a goal being scored because it's like you don't know whether to even if it's even worth celebrating anymore because they might ruin your celebration or they might take it away, and the next thing you know, you've lost the thrill of a goal being scored. I think it's taken the the naturalism out of football, and I feel like everything's just very robotic now, and it's just, for me personally, it's ruining the game. I think it's ruining the game. I think, me personally, I can only speak for myself, of course, but I think I'd rather go back 15 years ago when, you know, you'd have some that would go your way, you had some that wouldn't when it comes to refereeing decisions, whether it be a mistake or not. I mean, I might be alone in that, and I'll concede that, but I'd rather that than just be sitting there or having a goal being scored and then turning around and finding out, oh, it's not a goal no more. So I just celebrated my arse off, and do you know what I mean? And it's just like, what can I say, really? How, like, it took them 5 minutes or so, just under 5 minutes or so to deem that offside, and it's like the whole stadium, 60,000 people are just sitting there like looking around thinking, oh no, what's going on? Like, surely if it's not clear and obvious, why are you intervening? I don't like, if it's not, everything's about being clear and obvious, but they get involved even when it's not. So, and you're sitting there wasting people's time for 5-6 minutes when you can't come to a concrete decision, and it's taking you this long. It's just, I think it's completely ruining the game, and I think fans, players, managers, no one's in cohesion with it, and I feel like, yeah, I think long term, I think it's just going to ruin the game if it's not already doing that.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Thanks so much, Travis. It can't be clear and obvious, can it? As far as I'm concerned, if it takes that long to make a decision, do you think that even the right decision's been made here? Because after all that time, to me, unless I'm being silly, I don't think he's offside.
Yeah, listen, I'm exactly the same as Joey. I'm absolutely done with VAR. How can they make a decision with VAR with penalties, free kicks, offsides, but they can't do it with throw-ins and corners? That's one of the biggest things for us, and maybe in the Premier League in general. You know, it's happened a couple of times where the ball's been kicked or deflections come off the opponent's the deflection off for a corner, and then we don't get the corner or even a throw-in.
Happened at Chelsea.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. And I think that they're very quick to jump on an offside when there's been a couple of times where it's not been offside, or a soft penalty that goes against us all the time. It's not consistent enough, and it's killing the game. As Joey said, but go back to 15 years when it was natural football, you know, and it's ruined the game. And now they're talking about bringing in automated. Was it automated offsides? They think about bringing in.
Yeah, that should be good.
Yeah. The refs there, the linos are there, the fourth officials are there. They're the people that see it. VAR has just completely wiped the game out. Even with the SAR challenge, you know, I think someone put a comment on earlier saying that SAR was lucky not to get away with not getting a red card. It makes it look so much more malicious in that slowed down version of VAR than what it does in real time playing. I don't understand the logic in it. The fourth officials and the refs are there for a perfectly good reason. VAR has killed the game.
That semi-automated offside starts this weekend, by the way. Comes on to play this weekend.
What does that mean? Someone explain to me what that actually means.
You know, like the Champions League, when it's semi-automated, it's supposed to speed things up and it's supposed to be more accurate. Because I agree with you boys are saying. I think some of those offsides where it's so tight, they're guessing. They're guessing what they think. It's not factual.
They do look straight. If you look at that, if you see what they're looking at that offside, it doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't look like a straight line. And
it looked like they altered the line to make it look offside than it actually was.
Semi-automated works because it starts this weekend in the Premier League.
Yeah, so that means they basically get rid of the lines, and computer technology does it all for you.
Exactly, and then that way we remove that problem. But I just feel like it just shouldn't be microscopic, and that's why I think Ange is right. And it, again, probably goes about it the wrong way and speaks a load of nonsense before he gets there. But he does actually make some really good points if you listen to it properly. And about VAR, it's just frustrating. We could talk about it all night, but the news of semi-alternated offsides coming in next weekend, which I didn't know about, I think that could shut that down because that is good. We'll have to see how it goes. I don't think it'll be perfect, but it should be more factual for sure. So let's continue on to the second goal, 42nd minute. Once again, Brandon Johnson, he got a brace. Probably unlucky not to get a hat-trick as well. So good game for him. Joe, I'll come to you. This was a really clever finish, wasn't it? It was neat, not a lot of contact and more about the placement, but I thought it was quite a cheeky goal.
Yeah, it was a great finish. I think both of his goals on Sunday were great finishes. To be honest with you, the first one was definitely more of like an old school Son type of finish, like driving late into the box with his left foot.
Yeah,
and I say the second one I think is quite crafty. I thought he took it very, very well, calm and composed, and he just like put a little toe in, and I thought it was a great finish. Personally, I'm not gonna lie. Well, I agree with Gareth as well, and Billy as well, and I say. He's not great on the eye, and overall, as a winger, I'm not a big fan of him at all. And he does wind me up the wrong way a lot of the time. But overall, you can't deny the kid knows where the goal is. He knows where the goal is. But overall, I think both of his goals were very, very well taken.
They certainly were. Thank you, Gareth. I mean, he just took it like a man in confidence, didn't he? Which is what you want, and just such a clinical player, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been first choice the last few games either. So maybe Ange just thought, let's get him on the team. He can score goals. Odegaard, I know he got those 2 goals against AZ Alkmaar, but it doesn't look like he can score too many goals. And look, Brennan, I think we've all said pretty much the same, that if he was a bit more on the eye, and I think one of the things is if he doesn't score or assist, he doesn't do anything else. He has to have an assist or a goal for you to go, well, he had an impact in the game. Because there's games you kind of feel that he doesn't want to be out there and he'd be hooked at half time. And I think the work rate's a big issue. He doesn't work back enough. I think in some of the big games this season, I think was at Man City away, he played Kulusevski out there for his work rate because he was worried about Johnson defensively. Man City having a lot of possession. We only won that game 4-0. Hard to believe it's the same season, but it'd be interesting to see if a new manager can get something else out of him. I do think the tactics are very much that, get the ball on as quickly as possible into the box. And when the ball's on the other side, get into the back post, which he's done quite well at times to score goals. But like you say, he doesn't come inside a lot or link up play or play little 1-2s around the corner. We don't really see him shoot outside the box a lot. All his goals are kind of inside the box. So whether he doesn't have the confidence to shoot outside the box or maybe he just doesn't, he hasn't got that on his locker. But it will be really interesting because I do think there's more there in him. I think we can get more out of him. But as a goal for it at the moment, he's pretty crucial because Johnson and Madison have been the two, really, haven't they? I know Kulusevski chipped him a few, but he's been injured. Son's form's completely tailed off. We kind of thought at the start of the season that he was kind of on the decline, but I don't think we expected it to happen this quickly, where he's been really, really ineffective. And for me, Johnson's got to play on Thursday. I don't know what way. I don't think he'll drop Son, but I think there is a call to drop him and maybe play Odegaard on the left. See if maybe he can do. I think Odegaard's a bit better on the left than he is on the right because he does come on side a lot more than Johnson, and Johnson's a little bit more direct. So maybe play Odegaard off the left, Johnson off the right, and maybe Solanke for the middle. But even that at the moment, Solanke looks absolutely shattered, doesn't he? It just looks like he's been overplayed. And, he does put a lot in the games, but at the moment, he just doesn't look sharp. And that's a worry because, he was scoring goals before his injury and he hasn't done that since. So, the last few weeks, for a team that scored a lot of goals this season, the goals have really dried up. And only got 3 yesterday, but before that, the goals were drying up. And from being one of the most entertaining teams, I thought our matches became quite dull. We lost the game to Fulham 2-0, but it was a really poor game. Lost to Chelsea 1-0, really poor game. The Bournemouth game, I thought we were completely battered and somehow got back on it. But, even the Brentford game before that, Ipswich was a good one. United was a 1-0 one. So the kind of goals that were going on, even when players were injuries, I actually think we were playing even better when we had injuries. I expected when players come back, we would get better. I actually think we've gotten worse. So that's a real concern that so many players at the moment look out of form and out of sorts. And you need players fit and firing to go on to do things. And especially in this Europa League, there's going to be no easy games. And we're really going to have the upper levels. And hopefully those goals for Johnson can give him a wee bit of confidence. I was kind of surprised he didn't take the penalty because it really was virtually the last kick of the game. The hat-trick would have meant a lot to him, but Romero made the decision to give it to Tell. Well, that's because Johnson can't hit a penalty or he's not good at them, or he thought maybe let's give Tell a goal for his confidence. And maybe Tell could be coming into the equation for Frankfurt. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Cheers. Travis, can I ask you about Brennan Johnson before we move on? Does it matter how he plays? And does it matter about his work rate if he's getting those goals or assists?
Yeah, I think it does. I think your work rate in the amount of goals you're getting equally as important as each other.
Even if
really.
even if you get those goals or assists, because a lot of people go, "Oh, he goes missing." But as far as I'm concerned, if he's producing that end product, which he so often does it matter how he's playing? I don't think so.
Me personally, it does, because he's a midfielder, so his job is to track forward and to track back. So obviously, as good as his assists and his goals are, I think it is still equally as important to still do his job. I've got a lot of time for Brennan Johnson. I think he's a good footballer. I think the only thing with Brennan Johnson is the hate and the way he got slaughtered online by people sending him messages and in indirect comments and stuff like that. I don't think any footballer should ever have to go through that. So I think that in itself had an impact on him with the way he played on the football pitch. But I think with Brennan Johnson, I think he's quick, and he can deliver into the box. But then you also got Pedro Porro behind him that can do the same thing. So I think he's a good player, Brennan Johnson. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he just needs to get a few more goals. Yeah, I've not really got anything bad to say about Johnson, to be fair.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. Thank you. Sort of get your thoughts on it, because you've been on a lot, but I don't think that's something that we necessarily discussed. So I
I
appreciate
think
you.
someone just put in a comment there that Johnson's a forward and not a winger. He's not a forward. He's a winger.
Yeah, similar thing. Yeah. No, he's a winger, but some wingers won't be tracking back. No, it's an interesting one, but a lot of it would be to do with the system. And sometimes I think, oh, he's lazy, he could do better, but his numbers are up there with the best. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy with that. But I understand why fans wouldn't be. I totally get that. At half-time, we went into it with a 2-0 advantage, going all the way now until the 90th minute. A goal from Southampton through Mateus Fernandes. I mean, Southampton been dreadful this season. They were dreadful in this game, but he's one of the positives. He didn't stop working and running until the final whistle. But Billy, that goal was coming, wasn't it, for them? I think that we, took our foot off the pedal, the foot off the gas. We're never great anyway, but we were poor in that second half. I mean, it just, for me anyway, felt like they were always going to get that consolation.
Yeah, we were absolutely dreadful in the second half. I think Anne said it as well. That's one. He said he criticised them for the second half, and I think he called out Odebear in particular. He said, when a sub comes on, they shouldn't have to take long to get into the game, and Odebear has been a bit slow getting into it. But I guess the reason is obviously they're trying to conserve their energy for Thursday. But in the Premier League, if you do that, you can find yourself 2-1 down. All of a sudden, one chance of Southampton is 2-2, and that is an absolutely, Rangers probably lost his job over that result. So you can't be that complacent in the Premier League, even though we're playing literally the worst team in it. We still let them back into the game, so it's a bit disappointing. But I can see the theory behind it. Obviously, Thursday is our biggest game of the season by far, but you can't be that complacent. And it was just the second half was just dreadful, to be honest.
Yeah, it was. Billy, before you go, can I get your score prediction for Thursday?
I think it's a really tough game to call. I just have a feeling we're going to do it because of the atmosphere. I think the atmosphere will be really good. I think they're a very good outfit, and without a doubt. I think we'll win 1-0. And I don't think that'll be enough to go through, but I think we'll win 1-0. But huge game. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely massive. Yeah, should be good.
Their goalkeeper's injured, isn't he? So Trapp is injured, so that's one good thing. But they've got some good players for sure. So I think it'll be a narrow victory. They're a really well organised team. They're definitely going to come and low block us. Definitely going to try and frustrate us, and then to try and get the win in their home turf with their atmosphere will be insane in Germany. So I'm hoping we can get a 2-3 goal lead, but I can't see it. So I'm going for 1-0.
Okay, cheers. Billy, thank you so much for coming on. Really do appreciate it. Once again, give us your time. Where do people find you?
Yeah, we're just Billie T on Twitter, and thank you for everything that everyone said about Change to Spurs. It's really appreciated, and we don't do a lot behind the scenes. It's really just a place where people can just come together. So we really appreciate the support. So thank you.
No worries at all. All the best. Thanks so much.
Nice to meet you guys, and good to see you again, Travis.
Pleasure to meet you, Bill.
Nice to see you, Bill. Pleasure.
Right, let's continue. I've got to ask you, Joe, about our back post defending, because this is where we conceded this goal. Does that concern you? How many goals do we concede like that?
Many over the course of Ange's tenure. I think at first it was always corners and set pieces, and now it's become back post goals and stuff like that. It's really bad, and I think it brings me back to a comment Eric Dyer made after he left, and he said that Ange doesn't do much tactical work, and they don't set up to defend or how they're going to defend in games. And I think that's quite for me, that was quite alarming. And I think it goes to show, really, doesn't it, over the last 18 months or so, like, if it's not the corners, if it's not set pieces, now we've moved on from corners to set pieces. Now it's just people being free at the back post. And in the Chelsea game, obviously, Van der Ven and Romero were both marking the same player, and then Enzo's come in the back post again and just headed it. One of the smallest players on the pitch, and he's headed the ball into the back of the net. Same with on Sunday yesterday. Will come over the back post. Jed Spencer's missed it. Fernandez is allowed to bring the ball down and let the ball bounce and score and shoot and score. And it's like, where you're in the box, or in the, most definitely the 6-yard box, a player should never, ever, ever, ever be able to bring the ball down in the 6-yard box and score. Impossible. And I think these things are the reasons. Well, these are the things I look at mainly when I look at Ange, and I think to myself, mate, I don't think you've actually got a clue, or whoever you're leaving in charge of those things in regards to defensive issues and stuff like that, whether it's Miles Jedinak or whoever. It's like, what are you guys doing in training then? Don't you guys do analysis and watch these things back and say, look, we need to rectify this and this and that? It's sometimes mind-boggling to me how we never seem to address issues that we have.
100%. Yeah, well said. I'm with you on that one. Let's go on to the last goal of the game, which came in the 96th minute. It was for us from Mateus Tell from the spot. We have already briefly spoken about it, but Gareth, are you surprised that Johnson didn't take it? What do you make of that?
I'm very surprised, because he's won the penalty as well. He's on for a hat-trick. It's virtually the last kick of the game. Even if he missed it, you never know in football, but I still think we would have held on for the 2-1-1. It was either one of two things. It was either that Johnson's obviously maybe not very good at penalties, or they really want to give Matisse Tell the opportunity to score and maybe build a bit of confidence, because he scored that goal against Villa, hasn't scored since. So maybe Tell is somebody that could feature in these games. I'm not sure. He didn't come on to the very end of the game, which was very surprising. I thought maybe Solanke would have come off earlier. He didn't. But maybe they just Romero felt that Tell needed the goal more than Johnson needed the hat-trick. But Premier League hat-tricks are rare. That might be the best ever chance he'll ever have of getting one. But look, the ball goes under the back of net, and really it's irrelevant now. And France, it was a big one. We spoke about it. He needed that one day to kind of get to Thursday, and he's there now. And we just have to go with it. Look, as long as the penalty goes on, I'm not really that fussed who takes it. I just don't want to see Son hit too many more of them, because I don't think Son's a great penalty taker. I think if Solanke was on, he probably would have taken it. So you were probably looking at your third choice penalty taker taking the penalty. So I mean, it was a lottery, and just Johnson's that type of character. He isn't like a hothead, is he? So I think I'm more aggressive. We seen Richarlison. He was really disappointed when Maddison remember the first game against AZ in the league phase, where Richarlison kind of was really emotional about not getting the penalty, and then he eventually got it. Johnson didn't really put up much of a fight, so he's that type of player, isn't he? But as it says, it's all relevant now, really. All right, balls in the back on it, and game was over. So,
as you say, it's totally irrelevant. But Ange's reaction was interesting. He kind of turned away and almost like shook his head by the looks of things. And that's the thing. He's not very authoritarian, is he? He doesn't like to get involved in those situations. So I think by his reaction suggested that he wanted Johnson to take it. But that's on him. If he doesn't have the doesn't want to say it, that is on him. He seems to let the players sort that out. But I just get by his impression that he was surprised that happens, but it doesn't matter. It ends up in the back of the net. But Joe, that should give Tell a little bit of confidence, as Gareth says there, shouldn't it? Really?
Yeah, most definitely. I was quite excited when Tell first came in. I've been watching him in Germany when he's come and made a few appearances in and out. Obviously, playing behind Harry Kane's that's going to be the difficult thing to do. But I think he definitely needed that goal yesterday to kind of boost his confidence and kind of help him moving forward. Obviously, it's a shame that Brennan couldn't take it and obviously get his hat trick. But if I'm totally honest with you, I'm not really sure about Brennan when it comes to a penalty. I can kind of see or sympathise why the players may have possibly suggested that, I think it may have been the right thing for Tell to take it, whether we know or not. There might be things behind the scenes that they see in training, but obviously it's a shame for Brennan. But overall, I think I'm more happy that Tell got off the mark now, and I hope he obviously scored in the Villa game, but got off the mark in the Premier League, and hopefully, it can put him in good stead to get some more.
Let's hope so. Travis, should we sign Tell in the summer? Have you seen enough so far?
I've not seen enough to convince me that we should sign him for the 60 million. I'm hoping I want him to start on Thursday night against Frankfurt. I'd like to see him starting up top. I don't think it's too much of a big game for him, obviously, where he's come from Bayern Munich and he has got into the starting 11 quite a few times. So I would like to see him start over Solanke, give Solanke a bit of a rest. I don't think Solanke's been bad, but as someone mentioned earlier, I think he's not really been the same sort of player since he's come back from his injury. But I think he's someone that we need at the club. I think with his experience being at Bayern Munich, he's a youngster, and I think he could be quite a big asset in the seasons to come. So yeah, I mean, we nearly signed Timo Werner. I had high hopes for him when he first comes to Tottenham, but I don't think we should sign Timo Werner. Whereas Tell, I think he's got a bit more about him personally. So yeah, I would like to sign him, but I'd give him obviously till the end of the season to see if he's worth the 60 million that they're saying they're going to pay for him.
Absolutely. It ended Spurs 3, Southampton 1. Travis, sticking with you, not a good game for the neutral, was it? I think both teams were quite poor, and you could tell that both teams' seasons really petering out.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't entertained whatsoever. I know obviously we got the 3-1 win, but you're playing against a team that have just been relegated to the Championship. So it wasn't entertaining to watch. But as you say, it's petering to the end of the season now. I'm glad we rested Mickey van der Ven because he's going to be a massive player for Thursday night. So I think Ange definitely got that one right. So yeah, obviously 3 points is 3 points, but as I said, you're playing against Southampton who've just been relegated. So yeah, very very boring game of football.
Certainly was. Gareth, as Travis says there, Southampton relegated on the night, 22 points adrift as things stand, the earliest ever Premier League team to be relegated, being at the start of April. How did you think they played? Because I thought they were poor generally, but they grew in confidence in that second half and showed something about them, a little bit of fight.
I think that's been the epitome of Southampton this season, where they've kind of looked okay on the eye at times, like better than Leicester, for example, but just haven't been able to get results. And when they found themselves in positions of strength, they made like an unforced error or a really poor mistake, and they would never recover from that setback. You think back to the Liverpool game. I remember watching them, and they were 2-1 up, bottom of the league, playing top, and the goalkeeper made a mistake, Ramsdale, and Salah just passed it around him, and they give away a penalty for handball. Then they go and play Liverpool at Anfield and done the exact same thing where they were 1-0 up and they give away an hour penalty for handball. It's just some of the, if you're a Southampton fan this season, you'd be tearing your hair out at some of the mistakes because they've give teams massive gifts. They've lost some tight games, 2-1, 3-2. Our games they've been battered, but there's some of them tight games they've sort of self-inflicted the results. And look, at this level, we've been guilty of that ourselves at times, making mistakes and giving teams goals, but Southampton are on our level. I don't think I've ever seen a team give away as many soft goals as Southampton.
No.
Just that really frustrating season for their fans. You know, I don't think they should have sacked Russell Martin. I thought they should have stuck with him because I think even when they sacked him, it was pretty clear they were going to go down. They weren't going to be good enough to stay up. And they kind of lost their identity a wee bit. They haven't been as good to watch, I don't think, under this new manager. And I think Russell Martin as well knows the championship, so he could have definitely went down with them and brought them back up. Whereas now they've sacked this manager, he was never going to stay on, and now they have to go and get another manager to get them out of the championship. So they've kind of panicked, and we see this with clubs a lot. They panic and make a kind of like a short-term fix to try and get out of it. But I was disappointed when they didn't stick with Russell Martin because I thought under him, yes, there were some bad results and bad performances, but there was some really, really good ones as well. They were just a bit unfortunate they not get more points. But I think the last couple of months, really, they've accepted their fate, haven't they? And the performances haven't been great. And I think there was a sort of accepted that they were going to go down. I think for the Southampton now, the focus will be let's try and get at least 2 more points. Even 1-1 would do it to avoid being the worst ever team. And I think at this stage, their fans would take that. Just get 1-1 somewhere and get them on to 13 points. And that means they would overtake Derby with 11. At the moment, they need a point to tie with them or 2. They overtake them. So I think that's got to be the focus for Southampton because nobody wants that record of being the worst ever team they play in the Premier League.
No, indeed. It will matter to them for sure. Travis, I know you have to jump now. So thanks so much for coming on. Where can people find you across social media? Talk to people about what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back on again, Harry. I absolutely love being part of this podcast and meeting some new faces, Joe and Gareth. An absolute pleasure meeting you both tonight, talking all things Spurs. You can find me on Twitter at officialcaster or X or whatever it's called nowadays. I am also on LinkedIn where I do a lot of work for men's mental health and a lot of charity work as well. So hit me up on there if you are on there. So yeah, absolute pleasure to be back on again, Harry. And yeah, hopefully we get a good, decent result Thursday night. We've got something to talk about in the next one.
Absolutely. Keep up the good work. Thanks so much, Travis. Up the Spurs.
Pleasure, Travis.
Take care, boys.
Cheers, Travis.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Right, us three, let's continue with the Southampton kind of analysis and review, and we'll move on to Frankfurt next. One thing I do want to touch on is, the performance. Joe, does that performance give you any confidence going into Frankfurt?
To be honest with you, not really, because I feel like for most parts we were quite passive. I think we went into that game kind of knowing we'd already won it before we kicked the ball, and I think we expected to win it. And I think the fan base as well, clearly in the ground, wasn't up for it. I think everyone was also quite a bit, underwhelmed and stuff like that, especially considering the result against Chelsea. And overall, our current situation being 16th before a ball was kicked. But yeah, I feel like everyone's just a bit, just underwhelmed with what's happened with the season. I think everyone's literally gearing up and waiting for Thursday to come, to be honest with you. And I think that's when we're going to see a proper atmosphere back at the stadium. And I think that's all we're really playing for. I think we all know the Premier League season is basically done and we're just literally sleepwalking through it. And I think, everything just geared towards Thursday, I think. But on the pitch, to answer your question, Harry, it wasn't too pleasing overall. And I think the intensity just wasn't there, especially in the second half. Southampton had predominantly most of the possession, and I don't think we had a great account of ourselves in that second half, especially when Southampton scored and made it 2-1. And everyone kind of looked at each other and was a bit like, "Oh no, surely not!" But yeah, I think it could have been a lot better. But hopefully we're in much better spirits and raring to go on Thursday.
Yeah, 100%. Let's hope so. Thank you. Gareth, what did you make of the atmosphere? Because I was there inside the stadium. It felt really weird. It just felt, I could tell that it was quite nervous, quite a bit of tension at times. It didn't feel like that we'd won. The scoreline it didn't reflect the mood and the kind of atmosphere inside the stadium.
I think it was one of those games, Harry. It was a no-1 situation. We were expected to beat Southampton, even though how poor we've been. I think even a lot of pundits this week had tipped Spurs they won, which, they haven't been able to win too many games recently. So I think that shows you where Southampton were at. And I think Joey's spot on there about, passive. I think the fans were passive, but I think the team's been quite passive as well recently. That was probably the word you could use to describe the performance on Thursday. You wouldn't have knew it was a London derby. You wouldn't have knew it was Chelsea away. Almost like a pre-season friendly vibe from our intensity in our play. That seems to have really, really been lost recently, Harry. That intensity. When we played games on the Rams, yes, we were conceding a lot of goals, but we were getting the ball forward quite quickly and creating a lot of chances. That's not really the case at the moment. There's definitely not as much up in the play. If you cast your mind back to the Chelsea game and Ange's first season, when we were unbeaten in the first 10 games, the second goal that was disallowed, the Son goal, they moved it like so quickly through the thirds. We just haven't seen that at all recently. So, players is lacking confidence, lacking belief. We spoke about that, but kind of just feel that the fans at the moment just probably can't wait for the season to be over. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't think anyone's got any real confidence for the Europa League. Maybe we could go an all round, maybe we could script past Frankfurt, but I don't think anyone genuinely believes we're going to win it. And they'd only be two potentially ties away from the final. It seems like we're so far away from it. There's only 8 teams left, but it just seems like it's such a big ask. I think at the start of the season, people had more optimism than they do now, and there was 36 teams on it. I think just people look at it and go, well, we haven't really put on a performance of note in a long time. Probably Liverpool at home in the Cup was probably the last time we played really, really well. There hasn't been too many performances after that I can think of. I know we beat Ipswich 4-1, but we could have been 3-0 down in the first 5 minutes of that game. The United game at home I thought was quite poor, and we won the game 1-0, but it's just not been that many to get behind. And I think that's one of the biggest issues the fans have at the moment is they're just not getting a lot of joy out of watching the team. And look, you can only go off the European results. I know Frankfurt got beat at the weekend, but if you look at what Frankfurt did to Ajax, Ajax are supposed to be a stronger team than AZ Alkmaar. We played AZ Alkmaar, 3 times this season, and we made hard work of it. Over those 2 games in the knockouts, we really should be wiping the floor with that team. They're a mid-table Dutch team, and we made hard work of it. Whereas Ajax are near the top of the league. Frankfurt just disposed of them over 2 games. So this is going to be a completely different level in the next week or so. These 2 games against Frankfurt, they play in Southampton. So I think Joey's right. You can't take yesterday's result as any real confidence that we're going to go and do damage to Frankfurt, because I think it's just a completely different level. And Harry, unless we turn up, I think it could be a very, very painful week, because maybe at home we can maybe script a result, but I just don't think we're going to go out to Frankfurt and play well. And I think the atmosphere, we're quite... I know we've been associated over the years, Harry, as being a soft team, but I don't think I've seen a softer Spurs team than this one. This we haven't been able to deal with setbacks at all this year. Every tight game we lose, near enough. We nearly lose every tight game.
And we don't bounce back, do we?
We don't bounce back. We concede the first goal. You may as well turn the TV off, really. I know the Bournemouth result, we fought back, but I think that was more down to luck more than anything. A freak goal from Sarr and a penalty. Bournemouth should have been out of sight, really, in that game.
Yeah.
But our record of coming from behind this year has been pretty poor. So I think we're going to have to get at least 2 or 3 goals in front on Thursday to go out there and defend the advantage. But I think we're possibly looking at a tight game on Thursday, but probably being not blown away, but being well beaten Frankfurt.
Yeah, 100%. Before we fully get into Thursday, a couple of players I want to focus on in this game. Joe comes to you with the first one. James Maddison, how do you thought he played? Was he got an assist? Do you think he looked better?
I think he did. I think I'm a bit torn on James Maddison, me personally, because I feel like he's not a player that's going to galvanize a team and kind of put the team on his back, especially for a player that wears the number 10 following on the person who last had it, you know what I mean? But he's one of them players that, in my opinion, that when the going gets tough, he can't really look to him, whereas when things are great, he's a world beater, and he looks like a proper top player. And overall on Sunday, I think he played well, but again in Southampton, with all due respect. But I feel like in order for us to really do something on Thursday, he's going to need to turn up. He's going to need to be fit and firing, and you know what I mean, putting the team on his back as such, and creating chances and stuff like that. I think he's going to be key to what we do on Thursday for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Gareth, what did you make of Solanke's performance? We did touch him in earlier, and you mentioned there about him being tired, etc. Do Do you feel like it's the case of Solanke doesn't get the service, maybe one-man band in terms of things like pressing? Or do you think he's got to also do more himself? Because I thought he really struggled in this game.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the main issues. He's not getting a lot of service, is he? He was getting a lot of service earlier in the season. He's not getting a lot of service, but I do think he's definitely struggling. He's not pressing how he was. That injury's obviously taken its toll. And I think his confidence shot to pieces, really, because he's not really had too many opportunities. And, he doesn't look like he can score a goal at the moment because he's feeding off scraps. As a team, we're not creating a lot. And I think at times he's doing a tireless job up there. He's running around like a headless chicken at times and I think he is quite an intelligent player, but I think he's just running around in circles to try and engineer something from the front. At the start of the season, we were quite good at winning the ball back high up the pitch. We've struggled to do that recently as well. And I just think the game's become so stretched, and one pass can cut our midfield open from Solanke right through to the defence, and we're just all disjointed. And I think he's suffering like a lot of players. These players are suffering. But the one thing I would say with Solanke, I think he gives whatever he's got. He's not one of the players that's completely down tools. I think he's trying his best, but it's just not happening at the moment. Maybe if he gets a goal on Thursday, that could change. But I would just like to see Spurs play with more energy and more intensity. And I think if you get that, you'll get a better version of Solanke as well, because he'll be getting more opportunities in the box and stuff. So I just think, Harry, we're going to really suffer. I says this to a few of the Spurs fans on Chris's show, that I just think it's going to be a really miserable end of the season. I think you're going to see a lot of players looking like they're not interested and looking like they're disengaged with the tactics. And for us, it'll probably be a very long April and May, but I hope to be proven wrong. I really do. I mean, I think it will be great if we could get a result on Thursday, and then we've got a bit of a sweat next Thursday. And I think if we were to come through Frankfurt, our season kind of continues on for another couple of weeks, because, despite the poor league form, people will say, well, we've got a semi-final coming up. Whereas I think if Frankfurt put us to the sword, again, I think that fans will just want the season to be over, because there's very little to gain out of the league games now, isn't there? A one yesterday didn't make me feel much better about supporting Spurs. So even if we were to go and beat Wolves next week, is that going to make me feel much better? Probably not. But if we can get past Frankfurt, there will be a little bit of hope. They say, well, who knows? It's a semi-final now. We're only 2 games away from the final, and on any given day in a final, something can go your way. So look, it's just really important we get through these games. And I think obviously the result's crucial against Frankfurt, but if we can put on a performance at least, it would give fans confidence, and I think we would see a lot more positivity, and that can only help the team on the pitch. So here's hoping anyway.
That's what we like to hear. Funny little stat here for you. Aaron Ramsdale has now experienced relegation 4 times with 4 different clubs over the last 7 years. So the Ramsdale curse does continue.
Picking a man with his down, Harry. Brutal, hey, brutal.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Clutch at straws with the positives, but it's certainly one. Let's move on now to Frankfurt. Let's start with some stats. There isn't that many. Some just general stats of the game. Let's go through team form. So in the last 5 in all competitions, Spurs in us have won 2, lost 2, and drawn 1. Frankfurt really mixed. They've won 3 but lost 2. They sit 3rd in the Bundesliga and are doing really well. The 3rd top scorer in the Bundesliga. However, they've struggled in their last 8. They've lost 4 and they've lost like 3 of their last 6 as well. So it isn't the best reading for them, but still they're having a strong season. We haven't kept a clean sheet in 8 matches. And top scorers for both sides in all competitions for us is Son in the Europa League with 3 goals, 1 assist in 8 games. For them, it's Aitin with 3 goals, 3 assists, but has played more in 10 games. The bookies are back in Frankfurt, which is interesting away from home. But you just don't know.
Favourites to come to Spurs and 1? Or is that over the tie?
It doesn't say here. You would think it's over the course of the 2 legs, wouldn't you, rather than this game? But this is suggesting that Frankfurt, I don't know, maybe because of how good they've been this year. But
I think their strikers in great form, isn't it? They've got a striker, a Kiki or a Tiki. They're looking at him. So he's going to be keen to make an impression because a lot of obviously English fans will be watching the Europa League games. So this will be his chance to kind of show off the Premier League teams that are rumored to be interested in. Liverpool's supposed to be looking at him, so he'll be keen to impress, and he's quite pissy and he's quite powerful, and he knows one another. So he's one we'll definitely have to keep quiet.
Definitely. Joe, do you think it's well, I think it is, but I want to get your thoughts. Our biggest game of the season today, would that be fair to say?
Yeah, most definitely. Obviously, it's not only is it a quarter final, it's a big European night, and obviously we've had the Carabao Cup semi-final stuff like that. That was at the time was our biggest game of the season, but this is much bigger. I think much bigger, and again for the grand scheme of things, crucial to Ange's Tottenham career, and obviously our season as a whole. Really, I think the whole season rests on this game. So hopefully we can go out there and put a good account of ourselves. Again, I think playing at home behind our fans is usually, we have a good omen with that. Obviously shown in the Liverpool games, when both Man United games in the Carabao Cup as well. The first leg of the Man United game in the Carabao Cup as well. It's just about us going away from home and putting on a performance, really. I think, if anything, the fans again will get behind us, the team in the home tie. I think it'll be quite tight, like Gareth said, but and Billy said as well. I think we could probably squeeze a 1-0 result on Thursday. Just about going to Frankfurt and getting a result, really, or trying to do well, because I went to Alkmaar a few weeks back last month, and that performance we gave out there was dreadful. Was really dreadful. So it's all about getting it right away from home, really. I think it's going to be the main issue.
That second leg, having that away is a little bit of a killer, but we get to set the standard in that first leg, and so many times we failed to come back at home in that second leg. So this could be a positive. You don't know. Gareth, I'm going to ask you, because Joe mentioned it there. It's really important, isn't it? The fans get behind the players on Thursday. I know they're, a lot of them are annoyed at the moment. We saw scenes at Stamford Bridge, etc. I think all understandable within reason, but we've got to put our season behind domestically, haven't we, and give it everything for this game and try and be that 12th man, because we've seen from other clubs, etc., how much of a difference fans do make, especially at home on a European night.
Yeah, I think from the get-go and before the game, there will be a pretty good atmosphere on there, because it is a European night. Whatever you say about this season, there's an opportunity there. That's the beauty of football. There's always opportunities to rescue yourself, and this is a get out of jail free card. If Spurs were to go on and win this competition, I mean, it would be a season saver. It would be. It would. Yes, we would be disappointed with our league season, but not that it would be forgotten about. But it would be a real positive. They won a trophy. We haven't won a trophy for a long time, 2008, but they won a European trophy. Is huge, and it can put you on the map. Europa League's not an easy competition to win. We haven't seen too many English teams in the last kind of 20 years won it. You think back to Chelsea, they've won it a couple of times, but other than that, Liverpool have been on it. United won it 2-1 year. Ajax, but Liverpool have been on it, not won it. Arsenal have been on it a couple of times and not won it. So it's not an easy competition to win. So it would definitely, it's a glamorous trophy as well they won. And listen, look, there's the teams on it. They're good teams. You're potentially looking at Frankfurt, Lazio, and Bilbao. I think that's the three we'll have to face to go on and win this. Good sides, but they're not world beaters. They're beatable teams. Spurs were kind of the favourites earlier in the season. They go on and win this. So, we were viewed as one of the strongest on it. So there's still an opportunity there. But it'll be really interesting, Harry, how the game develops, how patient the fans are. Because I think if Frankfurt were to get an early goal, the place could turn toxic. I really do. I think it could be one of those nights where it's really good atmosphere before the game, but depending on how the game develops, if the tie ends up being over in the first sort of 60 minutes, I think you'll see the place empty, and then the people that are left will be out for blood because they'll know the season's over, and it'll be an uncomfortable watch for certain people. I'm really hoping that isn't the case. Just like Joey says, the only worry you have is, even if we do get a half decent performance, do you trust this group to go away from home and see the job through. There's very little evidence to suggest that they can do that. But look, we just have to remain positive. It'd be interesting to know, because you says there, Harry, about, it's a big game for Ange. I think regardless, even if we were to win this competition, he would still be sacked. I don't think the club will continue on with him. We've seen what happened with Erik ten Hag. He won a couple of trophies and they made the decision to keep him and ended up sacking him a few months later. The writing's on the wall for me in terms of, I don't think there's a lot of belief in the dressing room on this coach. I think they're probably already making plans for the summer. So even if we were to somehow win this competition, I think it would probably be a saving Ange's face more than anything. Not his Tottenham career, more like saving his face, that he can say, well, I won a trophy. That's exactly what it says I would do. And it might give him an opportunity of getting a job somewhere else. But I just think in terms of his Spurs future, it's over. Whether that's in the next week or two or it's it's the end of May. But I just don't.
Would you want him to stay though? If we win the Europa League, I certainly would.
Really, I think the problem is, Harry, if we won that Europa League, I think we've seen enough of Ange. They suggest he's not going to change. So teams are just going to catch on more and more of how Spurs play. And I just think eventually there'll be no more. I could see him, if they do win the Europa League and keep him, I could see him being sacked by Halloween next year, because if we get off to a bad start, they definitely won't let it run on any longer. So, no, I do think Ange probably knows deep down that his Spurs career is over. It's just whether it's now or it's the end of the season. But he's got an opportunity to do what he says he would do, and that's win a trophy. So he'll be firmly focused on that. He'll want to win it just as much as the fans, but probably for his own personal, they say, I've won a Europa League. I've done in Spurs what no one else could since Juan de Ramos. I says I was going to deliver a trophy. I always wanted my second season. So only for his aura will it help him. But I just think in terms of his Spurs career, regardless of what happens in this competition, he will not be the manager next season.
Okay, I don't think he will be either. However, I just think winning the trophy would be massive for us. But I totally agree with you. We've seen a lot of worrying things this season.
Do you think even if he won it, he would be sacked as well?
I think I think he probably will be. But I think whether he should be or not, I think you could probably put a good debate up either way. So
they might. Sorry, Harry. They might say that they might do like a mutual termination thing. Maybe he could say that he's he's fell out with the fans. There's no connection there. He could dress it up like that, where it's kind of both teams come to an agreement. But I think by Hercules, he won't be here.
No, I do agree with you, 100%. Bit of team news ahead of the game. Kevin Trapp, Frankfurt's starting goalkeeper, is out for the first leg against us. He's expected to be back in the squad for the return leg. So that's a good bit of news. Kulusevski as well is out again for the first leg by looks of things, but we're hoping he can make that second leg. Before we get to score predictions, let's run through both of your teams and what it would look like. Joe, what would be your starting 11 if you're in Ange Postecoglou's shoes right now? Obviously a massive game, a lot riding on it, and the team will matter.
I'm gonna go Vicario in goal. I'm gonna go Mickey and Romero at centre half. I'm gonna go Jed left back. I'm gonna go Porro right back, just because we're at home. I think we can afford to kind of go for Frankfurt, if that makes sense. I will definitely start with Bentancur, Lucas Berger. I think Lucas Berger has been superb the last couple of months. I think he's really, really been another one of him, Jed, and Archie. I think they've been our main three bright lights in a horrible season. So I'd go with Lucas and Bentancur with Maddison. I'll go. This is where it gets tough for me. Tricky. Even though Son's in poor form, I'd still go with Son left wing. I'd still just go with Son left wing because I feel like, given the opportunity, I trust his finishing. Up top, I'll go. I can't remember who said it. I can't remember whether it was Gareth or Billy or. I think it was it Gareth or Billy? I can't remember who said they'll go with Tell up top. I think I'll give it a go. I'll go with Tell up top, and I'll go with Brendan on the right. I think that's what I'd do. I think I'd go for it. Me personally.
Love it. Thank you very much. Gareth, what will be your lineup? Bold takes there from Joe with Tell up top. What do you reckon?
Pretty much the same as Joe. Same goalkeeper, obviously. Same back four with Jed on the left, Porro on the right, Romero, Mickey at the back. I'll go with Bentancur, Bergville, Madison in the three as well. I think Joey's right. It's nearly impossible to drop someone because he's the captain, and he's still got maybe a moment on him, even though he's been so poor. Who's more likely to score, Odegaard or Son? Probably Son. Johnson on the right. And they only, even though he looks tired, and I still would prefer Solanke over Tell. I just haven't seen enough of Tell. They suggest that he can lead us to, I was sending him back to Germany in the summer, to be honest. But that's my opinion. I just haven't seen enough of him. They suggest that he's going to be a good player for us long term. I know he's young, but I just haven't been that impressed with him. So I would go with Solanke just based on what I've seen from him when he was at his best. And again, I think between Solanke and Tell, who's more likely to score, I'll go with Solanke. But you know what I would say, lads? The only thing that I've been very surprised with since players have come back is that Archie Gray hasn't been tried in that 6 role. I'm very surprised that he hasn't tried that at all. And because I think there was some games Bentancur was poor, and I think he does not trust Basuma at all. He's not going to play Basuma again unless it's to come on and close out a game. We're hanging on towards the end and he packed them on field. But I'm surprised for how well Gray done at centre back and how well he adapted. He gave it his best shot, and there's definitely a player there. So I'm very surprised he hasn't tried him on that role, especially somewhere like yesterday where he, against Southampton, where there was an opportunity to maybe try that out and he didn't do it. So that is probably the only part of the he's hardly featured at all, Archie Gray, since the players have come back from injury, and he was very, very good, I thought, when players we needed him, and he's kind of been sidelined a wee bit, so I think that's been harsh, but I would have loved to see him tried in that role, because who knows, it might have been then, you might have been sitting here on tonight thinking, well, maybe Archie could go on there because he's had experience there, but you're never going to try it now in a Frankfurt game. But just very surprised at that, because Postecoglou spoke so well about him that he wasn't tried out in that role. But I think between now and the end of the season, I would like to see Archie Gray and given some minutes in midfield just to see, because I think Archie and Lucas could build up a good relationship on there. I mean, Lucas Bergville just seems to get better every game. He's the one player at the moment I kind of think, well, something might happen with him. Something, when he gets the ball, I kind of sit up in my chair a wee bit more, because I'm thinking, he can glide past players and run past players. His decision-making's got a lot better from the start of the season. And I think he's a goal threat as well. We've seen him pop on and get one disallowed, but he could definitely finish as well around the box. So just a little bit disappointed with that, but for now, I would have to stick with Bentancur.
Okay. No, I think you spot on with Bergvall and with Bentancur. So I appreciate that. And Gareth, I'll stay with you. Score prediction for this one.
What I'll do is I'll give you my prediction for Thursday and then the overall tie, if that's okay.
Go for it.
So I think Thursday will be 1-1. And I think we'll lose 2-0 in Frankfurt. So we'll probably go out 3-1. But that's just because of what I've witnessed over the last few weeks. It's just, I will be sitting here lying to myself, and I wouldn't be being honest on your podcast, coming on here saying, we're going to beat Frankfurt and we're going to go on to win the Europa League. You just have to show me why we can think we can beat Frankfurt. And if we go and beat Frankfurt and blow them away and somewhere near our best, I'll say, well, who knows then, maybe we can go and they win it. But I just have to be honest to myself, and I wouldn't be being honest to your watchers, Harry, if I was coming on here and being disingenuous. So I have to go with my honest prediction, and that's us going out, unfortunately, with the 2 games.
Do you know what? Really appreciate that, because honesty is the best policy. There's no good line. There's no point in that. So appreciate that. And we've been bad this season, so totally understand why you're not feeling confident, because that Southampton performance didn't exactly fill me with confidence either. Joe, what is your prediction on night, but also overall? Are we going through?
I think we possibly might squeeze a 1-0 win. I think, if anything, if we're even going to win the game, I think, again, I said it prior, I think the fans are going to be a huge reason for it. But yeah, I think we can squeeze a 1-0 and then I think we'll get beaten. We'll get beaten Germany. I think we'll probably get beat like 3-0 or 3-1 or something. We might squeeze a late goal or something. But I think overall, I think we'll lose a tie, probably 3-2, maybe 4-2. I think in tie over both legs. So that's my prediction.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are the predictions there of the panel. That kind of wraps up nicely for this week's podcast. Thank you very much. Bit of a longer one, a lot to get through. Busy time of the season. Usually busier though. Having said that, you should be in and around those European places. Hopefully, be back there next season. Thank you all for tuning in. Discussing a win as well in Southampton primarily, but it doesn't really feel like a win because of the way we played. But still, 3 points is 3 points. So thanks to Billy and Travis left earlier, and also thanks to Gareth and Joe. Let's go around and see where you can find them. Gareth, where can people find you on social media if they want to drop you a follow?
All right, it's been an absolute pleasure coming on. I know it's my first time coming on, but really well put together there. Really enjoyed it. And good to meet some of the lads too. I met Billy before on an hour podcast, but other than that, I've met so many people, and I think everyone kind of tied in well together. So credit to you. Really good host, and wish you all the best in your success. And you've done really, really well so far. But you can find me at Gar's Hot Spurs there, and you can find me I'm actually on Chris Cowland's podcast on Sunday after the Wolves game. So I'll be talking obviously probably about Frankfurt at home and the Wolves game, and probably previewing the second leg of Frankfurt. So if you've got time after you watch Harry's podcast to come on and watch Chris's, then you'll find me on there. But great work, Harry. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Gareth. Really solid debut from you. Really good to have you on. So really appreciate that, and thank you for your kind words. Joe, speaking of debuts, also a really solid debut from yourself. Where can people find you across social media? Because you do some good work.
Thank you for having me, Harry. As Gareth said as well, I think it's great what you're doing. Love the podcast. Very well laid out, well presented as well. Really, really good. Really had a lot of fun being on today, and thank you for giving me my debut. You can find me on Joey Huncho 1 on Instagram, Joey Huncho 23 on TikTok. Also, I have a separate Spurs page of my own called Tottenham Joe 23 on Instagram, and on Twitter it's J Crouchy 23. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, guys. Sorry, I apologize. These things were all made at different. These things were all made at different times, so sorry about that. But that's where you guys can find me.
Yeah, make sure you go and drop both these guys a follow. You can follow me at HarryScarf22 across all socials. Most importantly, though, do check these guys out. If you're listening live on YouTube, please do smash that subscribe button, smash the like button, and still do get involved. If you're listening after on a podcast platform, big up to you, because a lot of you listen right through to the very end, because this is available, as always, on all major podcast platforms. And if you have enjoyed, please do drop a 5-star review. If you're new, please follow as well. Thanks so much. A shout out to our sponsor in the Kitman. Right, enough of me waffling now. Massive come on you Spurs. Let's hope this week's a good week. A couple of wins would be nice. Up the Spurs.